The King's Avatar, Chapter 1230. Caution at the end. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1230. Caution at the end. Translator, Gnome Yummy. Editor, Gnome Yummy. Boom. The missiles flew out from the chamber and towards Dancing Rain, who was on top of the watchtower. Fighting with the lower ground was very difficult, and many skills couldn't even be used. For example, heat-seeking missiles would never be able to get so high, and stingers couldn't be launched so far either. Otherwise these AoE attacks would easily send Dancing Rain toppling from her perch. Young Hao Xuan, with the lower ground, was at a disadvantage. However, right now, his helplessness from before had been completely swept away, his attacks determined and confident, his aim precise. 3 anti-tank missiles were shot towards Dancing Rain's landing point. Boom, boom, boom. The 3 missiles exploded on the side of the watchtower just as Dancing Rain was landing. Dancing Rain, still airborne, couldn't dodge so far. The force from the 3 consecutive explosions threw Dancing Rain even higher. Su Mucheng hurriedly had Dancing Rain carefully bring her cannon muzzle around. She had to adjust Dancing Rain so that she could still remain on the watchtower when she landed. As expected of Su Mucheng, young Hao Xuan fell into awe at Su Mucheng's mechanical skill, but he didn't plan on just admiring it. Translucent took out a Gatling gun with a swish to follow up with another attack to the airborne Dancing Rain and send her completely off the watchtower. Currently, her rotor wings was in cooldown, so there was no way she could fly back up. Rada. The sound of bullets came rapidly. The frequency was so high that it was a little unbelievable. The RPM of this skill depended on equipment stats, not mechanics. Such high RPM meant that this couldn't be a skill from Translucent. The bullets formed a line, shooting out from under the watchtower. On the other end of the line was Translucent's left hand, which was holding his gun. Thud, thud, thud. With sound of bullets hitting flesh, blood splashed everywhere. Translucent's left hand wasn't really blasted into smithereens, but it still couldn't take the momentum. Immediately, the bullets he was shooting into the air went off target. Damn it. Li Zan was depressed, cursing. Young Hao Xuan had already done very well. His amazing performance had almost succeeded in throwing Dancing Rain off from the watchtower, yet this time, it was Li Zan and co who failed. In this most crucial time, they didn't give young Hao Xuan the support he needed, allowing Lord Grimm to destroy Translucent's offensive with the exact same skill. There was only one chance. Under Su Mucheng's precise manipulation, Dancing Rain landed accurately back onto the watchtower. You should never neglect my presence, Yi Zhu pointed out methodically but sarcastically. It was clear that the opening Void had given him this time was far too big. Yes, too big. Void's members were so focused on the trouble Su Mucheng was giving them that they had forgotten Su Mucheng was always only ever a supporting character. And the person she was supporting was the true core of the team. Yi Zhu. They had somehow forgotten Yi Zhu and given the opponent's core players such a large opening. This mistake meant that Void had to suffer the terrible consequences. Dancing Rain, back on the watchtower, immediately threw out a stinger. The stingers rained down like flower petals thrown by a goddess, and then Gatling guns swept over them wildly, creating small pits in the ground. Young Hao Xuan's Translucent dodged around with his heavy cannon, flowers of blood occasionally blooming on his body. Not grasping the chance meant an even worse blow. Under Dancing Rain's cover, Happy focused everything onto offense. Tang Ru's soft mist broke right through the ghost duos, Slash and Boundary, beginning a direct conversation with Crying Devil. Wu Yu's carved ghost wanted to come to the other's support, but Crying Devil suddenly vanished from sight, Lord Grimm clocking the way with his umbrella. Zhe Kaiji suddenly felt that this was a good chance, hurling a sealing talisman towards the myriad manifestations umbrella. However, that was when he saw a message pop up in the chat. Boss, careful. A brick smacked the back of his head and Blue Exorcist was stunned. At the same time, Li Xuan's ghost lantern was blown flying by a flash burst. Li Xuan had wanted to sneak attack Boundless Sea, but Feng Rui was the master of this kind of dirty play. Noticing Li Xuan's intentions, Feng Rui had purposefully given the other an opening. Li Xuan's ghost lantern had came over all delighted, but went back ridden with internal injuries. Void's formation had been completely ruined, and the result was clear. Happy took advantage of the chaos Void had been thrown into, switching targets several times, and giving each member of Void a warm greeting. This made Void depressed. Happy, with the absolute advantage, didn't rush and hurry to get rid of a single opponent first, but open-fired on all of Void. If they focused their attacks and wiped out one of Void's members, then their healer would be forced to switch and they wouldn't know what would happen in that short period of 4v5. But so long as they endured until their healer came, then they'd fight a 5v5 with a healer and have a chance to turn things around, even if they might be one character short. But now, Happy launching an attack on everyone in Void's team cruelly deprived them of this unknown chance. Void knew that they couldn't let Happy chip away at them like this, but apart from Yang Haoxuan's translucent, none of the others had much of a chance to escape. Yang Haoxuan was trying to deal with dancing rains supporting fire from above. After Wu Yus had yelled at him, he had found his courage and was performing exceptionally well. They really couldn't have him leave to switch out with the healer. They had to risk it. That was when Li Xuan suddenly activated life-risking strike. With how much of a mess Void was right now, there was no way to give him support and increase his chances of success. Under these circumstances, Li Xuan still used this skill. Everyone immediately realized what he was doing. He was sacrificing himself. If he managed to hit, then that would be amazing for their team. If he didn't, then Ghost Lantern, with only a sliver of life left, would soon make a noble sacrifice and their healer would be switched in. As for ignoring Ghost Lantern and purposefully keeping him alive, that wasn't possible. If they kept a character they didn't dare get close to alive, then that would be equal to giving themselves a huge handicap. If Happy did decide to do that, then that would be like deciding to kill their own characters. The situation ended up going in the most predictable direction. Li Xuan's life-risking strike didn't hit and Ghost Lantern was immediately killed. Void's healer, Tang Lishengyi's paladin, Spirit Guardian, was switched in from the closest support zone, hurrying over. However, in this short time, Happy switched tactics. They began to focus all their attacks onto one person. Could they manage to wipe out one of Void's players before their healer arrived? This became the deciding factor, and everyone watched with wide eyes. Void's core Ghostblade duo weren't very tanky. Ghostblades utilized the power of the Ghost God to fight, finding their strengths in spirit and intelligence, then strength, then vitality. Then, their armor was cloth armor. Against physical damage, Ghostblades weren't much better than Elementalists and others. At the same time, the Ghost Duo's Wu Yus was a very headstrong and forceful fighter. In this moment, his playstyle had been grasped by Happy, and they immediately caught Carved Ghost and began to beat the other down. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Void was practically going crazy, trying to save him. However, Happy clearly didn't plan on switching tactics now. In the end, Carved Ghost was finally caught by Steamed Bun Invasion's strangle and thrown against the wall of the watchtower, allowing Happy to put everything into destroying him. During their offensive, Yishu's Lord Grimm's presence once again shone through. Though it might be weak, it was better than nothing. The unspecialized Lord Grimm was able to provide an important healing role. Void had realized that upon seeing Happy's no-healer arrangement. They had realized, but they couldn't do anything against it. It wasn't like they could change Lord Grimm's skill build. In crucial moments, the few tricks Lord Grimm had was enough to help Happy stabilize the situation. Wu Yus's Carved Ghost eventually fell against the wall. Tang Lisheng's Spirit Guardian ended up being just one step too late. 6v4, currently a 5v4 on the field. Void didn't want to give up though. Spirit Guardian healed the remaining 3 characters like crazy. Void was planning to make a final charge. And then, Happy dispersed. Yes, even Dancing Rain, on the watchtower, jumped down of her own volition, using her cannon to adjust her position in the air, gliding down smoothly. Happy, who had the advantage, could retreat with ease, and at the drop of a hat. Speaking of which, wasn't the direction they were retreating in the direction of the support zone on that end? Seeing Void's healer arrive, Happy decided to not rush things and ran off to get their healer on the field, too. They really weren't planning on giving Void a single chance. At the start, Happy had thrown their healer away to get to the best positions quicker. Very brave, very crazy. Yet, after getting the absolute advantage, Happy became cautious again. They, who were 2 people AEAD of Void, went back to get their own healer. Void couldn't stop the retreating Happy, chasing after them as the shadow of defeat grew within their hearts. When Happy got to the support zone, Steam Bun Invasion switched out for Little Cold Hands. Then, when they turned back to continue, Void's spirit had pretty much died. The battle ended quickly. 10-0. The audience erupted. Another 10-0. Happy really did it. After completing a 10-0 against Misty Rain, this time, they got another 10-0 against Void. Who would doubt Happy's strength now? If they did, they were probably blind. 10-0 after 10-0 couldn't be luck speaking. The Happy supporters in the venue cheered wildly, raising an open palm hand into the air, waving 5. Their open palms represented the number 5. 5 times. This was the number of 10-0s that Happy had achieved so far. Such a flawless record was something that many powerhouses couldn't boast having. Currently, Happy was the only one, right? Just as Happy's fans were excitedly confirming this with each other, a shocking piece of news came from another finished battlefield. Team Samsara, having also achieved a flawless victory against Team Heavenly Swords, had obtained their 5th 10-0 of the season as well. With the thought that one of these 10-0s were won from Happy, everyone immediately felt that this was exceptionally annoying. Their archenemy. Many people had this thought, and The King's Avatar, Chapter 1231 Round 14 finished. Audio source, WuShoWorldAudiobook.com. 1231 Round 14 finished. Translator, Gnome Yummy. Editor, Gnome Yummy. The antagonizing glares from Happy's supporters shifted straight towards Samsara. From this, it could be seen just how powerful an existence Happy was in their hearts, and Happy's recent performances on the point rankings lived up to these hopes. After losing to Tiny Herb in Round 8, Happy began their win streak. Starting from Round 9 until the recently completed Round 14, Happy had won 6 rounds in a row. 4 of Happy's 6 perfect 10-0s had taken place within these 6 rounds, and their other 2 9-1 wins were domineering enough too. During these 6 rounds, Samsara had achieved 3 10-0s, 2 9-1s, and 1 8-2. Comparing their total points gained in these 6 rounds, Happy actually beat Samsara by 2 points. It was needless to say the other teams as well. Happy had unexpectedly taken the lead in the alliance. Let alone Happy's fans, no one would take Happy lightly. Those who had hoped for Happy to fall couldn't help but feel nervous. Happy's achievements were too far off from their expectations. After round 14, Happy had taken another 10 points, moving up 1 place in the rankings with 89 total points and stepping down on 100 Blossoms, who had been in 7th. More importantly, outside of the playoffs zone, Happy now led the 9th place Void by 10 points. Team Void was very disappointed. The thought of Happy suddenly being 10 points ahead of them, despite having the same points just the round before, had never crossed their minds. They couldn't blame any one person. In fact, over the course of the match there had been no lack of highlights, matching vulgar post-match comment, "We performed well, but our opponents performed better." To be more specific, Void's longtime nemesis, Suma Chung, was as domineering as ever, giving Void a huge headache. This was practically something that Void had never found a good solution to in their many years of existence. Then, there were the team competition strategies. Happy took a huge risk but succeeded with a beautiful opening, while their carefulness at the end thoroughly destroyed any last thoughts from Void. They had utilized their home map advantage extremely well. We lost to Happy. I can only say that this isn't the end. I look forward to our next match together. Team Void's Lee Zahn said, concluding Void's post-match press conference. Happy vs. Void, a clean sweep. Samsara vs. Heavenly Swords was an even cleaner one. In this round, Tiny Herb, Blue Rain, and Tyranny, the traditional three powerhouses, ended their matches 9-1 against opponents much weaker than them. Apart from them, Misty Rain beat 100 Blossoms 7-3 after losing to both Void and Happy in round 12 and round 13. Even so, 100 Blossoms still held on 8th with a total of 83 points, just inside the playoffs zone. On the other hand, despite winning this round, Misty Rain's 4 consecutive losses had lost them a lot of points. Misty Rain was still 10 points behind 100 Blossoms, sitting at 11th with 73 points. Their hopes for playoffs were becoming dimmer and dimmer. It seemed to be proof that their unconventional playstyle didn't work in the pro scene. Between the 11th place Misty Rain and the 9th place Void was Team 301, who lost 3-7 in their away game versus Miracle. Team Miracle was currently at 14th place with 50 points. If not for the other new team Happy being so demonic, they would have certainly received much more attention. Up until now, as a newly joined team, Miracle was doing very well. They just happened to catch a good opportunity and fished up 3 experienced excellent era players. Their original lineup wasn't without its bright spots either. Guo Xiao had received quite a bit of attention, especially out of all the new rookies this season. Royal Style, who had previously been strong contenders for the playoffs, had thoroughly fallen. They had been beaten by Tiny Herb 9-1 this round and were currently in 12th place. Their position on the rankings didn't seem that bad, but what about their total points? With a total of 58 points, they were 15 points away from the 11th place Misty Rain, let alone the points difference between 8th. Team Royal Style had been a team that had contended with Team Excellent in the finals of the Season 1 championships, but now they had fallen to such a level. But then again, the former 3-time championship winners, Excellent Era, had been relegated and disbanded. In comparison, Royal Style was doing much better. At least they were far away from the relegation teams. The 2 relegation teams, Bright Green and Seaside, had 27 and 23 points. The third-to-last place team Radiant had 41 points. Their fates seemed to have already been decided. Seaside wasn't too surprising. These past few years, they had always been struggling in and out of the relegation zone. However, Seaside used to have an all-star player and character on their team. They had never swam in the playoffs, but they had been a solid mid-tier team. Zhao Yang retired, and Boundless Sea was sold. They had been mourned for a time. Seaside hadn't given up though. They could only respect Zhao Yang's decision to retire, but for Boundless Sea, they knew that as a mid-tier team, raising an all-star level character as well as a suitable player was a big burden. And just a single all-star was no longer enough to carry the team in the increasingly competitive alliance. A god like Joe Sakai was someone who could only be chanced upon. What's more, Joe Sakai had a team of skilled teammates supporting him before winning the championships. In order to further solidify their dominance, Samsara even added in Sun Shang and One Autumn Leaf to their roster. Seaside's resources were limited. Pouring in their resources for a luxury like an all-star was something they couldn't support. Selling Boundless Sea had been a show of their decision to walk a more steady path of improving the strength of the team as a whole. Hope is beautiful, but from the looks of it, Seaside hadn't really improved. In these 14 rounds, they had even lost to Bright Green, their brother who was just as bad as them and sitting at 23 points. The post-match press conferences for these two terrible teams were cold and deserted. The remaining reporters who stayed had great opportunities to ask whatever they wanted. Did Team Seaside have any plans? When a reporter asked this question, Seaside's captain, Zhang Lintao, showed an expression of perplexion, mumbling and faltering through it without actually saying anything. Compared to these departing weak teams, the fans paid more attention to those fighting for the championship throne. The most watched match this round was Wind Howl vs Thunderclap. The Alliance also chose to broadcast this match. In the end, Thunderclap continued with their steadiness in the team competition, winning 6-4. Thunderclap relied on their 5 points from their team competition victory to steal the win from Wind Howl. At the end of the match, their cameras zoomed in on Team Wind Howl's team captain, Tang Hao, kicking a bottle of water away as he returned to his seat. Anyone could see that Tang Hao was unhappy with this match. 2 points in the individual competition and 2 points from the group arena, giving them a 4-1 advantage. Wind Howl went into the team competition in high spirits, but in their home game, Wind Howl was down with their tails behind their legs against Thunderclap. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. Did Thunderclap have all-stars? Xiao Shijin was obviously considered one, but in the group arena, he didn't win against Tang Hao. There was no one in Thunderclap who Tang Hao cared about, yet in the team competition, this group of nobodies crushed them in the map that their Wind Howl had chosen. This is a disgrace. Quote, in the post-match press conference, Tang Hao fully expressed his dissatisfaction. He didn't point his fingers at anyone, but rather his discontent towards his team as a whole for losing to Thunderclap. Even if Thunderclap was at third place, in Tang Hao's eyes, Thunderclap wasn't a strong team. If a loss like this happens again, I really don't know what we'll have to fight in the championships, Tang Hao said. Becoming the champions was Tang Hao's goal and Team Wind Howl's goal. They weren't satisfied with just being frequent playoff visitors. But this season, Wind Howl's performances had been inconsistent. Their momentum this season couldn't even compare to last season's. After 13 rounds, they were only at 6th with 86 points. Although they weren't far from the other teams above them apart from Samsara, this wasn't enough for Tang Hao. Even in the regular season, he hoped to reach the same heights as Samsara. But after 14 rounds, Samsara had 123 points, while Wind Howl had 90 points, a difference of 33 points. Samsara was supposed to be their only opponents. Thunderclap. How could a sudden upstart stop Wind Howl's advance? But Thunderclap really did stop them. How could Tang Hao not be unhappy? After 14 rounds, although Happy's recent 6-round point total surpassed even Samsara's, Samsara still stood far above in the rankings with 123 points. Even the second-place Blue Rain was only at 99 points, an entirely different tier than Samsara. What was even more terrifying was that Samsara had gone through a devilish schedule in the early parts of the season. The teams that could threaten them had already fallen under their hands. Their upcoming opponents might try to study them, but the disparity in strength would only result in them giving their points to Samsara as expected. It was hard for people to think that these teams could drag down Samsara. The suspense for this season was ending too fast. No. Much of the media, players, and commentators expressed similar thoughts. Samsara's advance could not be stopped. There seemed to be no saving Bright Green and Seaside either. Those spots could be considered as locked into position. Then, next up, the only thing left to look at were the spots for the playoffs. 301 Void, Misty Rain. These three teams were outside the playoffs zone, but they were still on the offense. These three teams are going to need to work hard. The people silently praised. If these three teams didn't put in more effort and make some chaos in the playoffs zone, this season's regular season would be too boring. End chapter. The King's Avatar, Chapter 1232 Round 15. Audio source, WuxiaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1232, Round 15 Translator, Noam Yummy Editor, Noam Yummy. After round 14 ended, numerous reports and commentary appeared over the next 2 days. Scenes such as Tang Hao kicking a water bottle after a match were also reported, but those didn't make the headlines. Tang Hao had yet to reach the point where he could lose but still be the central character. The headline sung for the winners. Happy's fifth 10-0 Thunderclaps team competition record, and Samsara's fifth 10-0 would not be neglected. 123 points in 14 rounds, leading the second-place team by 24 points. These were absolutely ridiculous achievements. This dominance cemented their place as the true central characters this season. Even though there was competition, the esports home's headlines displayed Samsara's 10-0. Happy would have to give way. Even Thunderclaps' team competition record was inferior in front of Samsara. Team Samsara had won all 14 matches, while Thunderclap had lost a royal style in round 9. Thunderclap was one missing from a perfect win streak, a pity. The headlines gave more than enough respect towards the bellwether, but the detailed discussion consisted more of Happy and Thunderclap. After all, Samsara's perfect win had been against Heavenly Swords. To everyone, this win should be easy as pie, without any worries of losing. What was there to talk about? However, Happy and Thunderclap were different. Happy had a perfect win over Void, while Thunderclap made a comeback against Wind Howl. Those matches had high-level content to talk about. After discussing these two teams' performances this round, everyone agreed by chance that how long their momentum would continue for would be something to pay attention to. Next round, Happy would be challenging Lightly in their away game, while Thunderclap would be welcoming Misty Rain in their home game. No one questioned Happy's strength anymore. Facing the 16th place 46-point Lightly, victory seemed to be theirs already. People were simply wondering whether Happy would be able to pull off another 10-0. As for Thunderclap versus Misty Rain, given Misty Rain's recent ups and downs, as well as their questionable unconventional playstyle, Misty Rain would be facing Thunderclap, who excelled at the team competition. Very few people had hopes for Misty Rain. In fact, more people were looking towards the round after. Round 16, because Happy and Thunderclap, these two teams that had given them the most surprises this season, would be facing against each other in Happy's home game. Get out of the way, round 15. Quite a few people had these sorts of thoughts. But time couldn't be skipped. Each round needed to be played one at a time. Round 15 couldn't just pass by in the blink of an eye. On 12/13, round 15 began on schedule, and the broadcast chose 100 Blossoms welcoming Void as the highlight match. In the end, 100 Blossoms barely beat Void 6-4. There were no changes in their placings on the rankings. 8th place and 9th place were neighbors, but the difference between them were night and day. A rather surprising result this round was Blue Rain losing 4-6 to Parade in their away game. Blue Rain had a huge lead after the individual rounds, but unexpectedly lost in the team competition. With this loss, Blue Rain instantly slid down from 2nd to 5th. And right below Blue Rain was Happy, who had advanced another place once again this round. Happy won their away game against Lightly 9-1. Everyone felt that it was a pity they couldn't get one more point for a 10-0. Coincidentally, Samsara also got a 9-1, although their opponents were 301. Tyranny and Tiny Herb 8-1-2 against their mediocre opponents. Another surprising result was Wind Howl, who had the situations reversed by Thunderclap last round, once again stumbled, losing their home game against Royal Style 7-3. This time, Tang Hao didn't kick a water bottle, but in the post-match press conference, he didn't even show up. His attitude showed just how unhappy he was with Wind Howl's recent performances. Wind Howl had lost 3 rounds in a row, and their placings were dropping. Right now, they were at 7th place, lower than Happy by 5 points. But to be fair, Wind Howl's opponents these 3 rounds had been Hundred Blossoms, Thunderclap, and Royal Style, all fairly strong opponents. With the team competence 5 points lost in each of those rounds, Wind Howl had obtained 3, 4, and 3 points. Using comparisons like 8-2, 7-3, looked to be huge disparities, but because the team competition was worth 5 points, these were the most common results. In an 8-2 win, if the losing side had won the team competition, it would turn into 3-7. In a 7-3 win, if the losing side had won the team competition, it would be a 2-8. In reality, the wide disparity between points was a result of the way the rules were set up. It was completely different than a 7-3 or an 8-2 in football. Wind Howl's 3 consecutive losses were these point differences. It could be said that their strength still had a solid foundation. However, 3 consecutive losses still raised some doubts over them, although in comparison to the public, Wind Howl themselves had a huge reaction to it. After 2 losses in a row, their captain Tang Hao couldn't bear it anymore and kicked a water bottle. After their 3rd loss in a row, he wasn't even in the mood to show up for the post-match press conference. "I think our loss streak ends here." Quote, with their captain not there, Vice-Captain Liu Hao spoke up in the press conference. Yes, Liu Hao, the former excellent era vice-captain, had switched to Thunderclap and became Thunderclap's vice-captain. In the summer, he transferred to Wind Howl and gradually created a position for himself. After their original vice-captain Fang Rui left, Liu Hao was appointed vice-captain. After all, Liu Hao was skilled, and he had plenty of experience. He had acted as vice-captain and as captain before, so he had experience in leading. At Wind Howl, he was seen as someone who would be a great help to Tang Hao. For example, Tang Hao had gotten angry and didn't show up to the press conference, while Liu Hao talked fluidly as if he were used to be in this position. It was as if their captain didn't exist. Everyone was a bit astonished at his bearing, but then again, of course Liu Hao was used to this because when he had been in excellent era, their captain Yushu never showed up for press conferences. It was always him who had to face the media as the vice-captain. Liu Hao had experienced his team's captain not participating in the press conference countless times. How could he not be calm? Experienced with the media, he resolutely expressed that they would definitely win next round. The reporters quickly checked next round's schedule. Next round, Wind Howl would be facing Heavenly Swords in their home game. These 3 rounds never really showed whether Wind Howl was truly weak. Next round, as long as their mentality was fine, they shouldn't have any problems winning against Heavenly Swords. However, Team Wind Howl's team captain and core, the Tang Hao who succeed the senior as the junior, seemed to be undergoing an unbearable setback. "I'm not worried at all." Liu Hao continued to speak calmly. "Our captain thirsts for victory more than anyone else, so he also feels more ashamed than anyone else when he loses. But when the match comes, he'll still be striving for victory. That I believe without a doubt." A good answer. Wind Howl's PR team felt very gratified. They were especially moved by their vice-captain this time. WuxaWorldAudio.com. Thinking of their previous Wind Howl vice-captain for many years, Fang Rui. What an irresponsible guy. He would often babble nonsense in the press conference without the bearing of a vice-captain at all. The PR team wanted to rush up and beat him up numerous times. As the PR team, they looked at things from their perspective, and to them, the difference between Liu Hao and Fang Rui was light years apart. As for Fang Rui being an all-star, what did that help? It didn't. With Liu Hao's skillful response, Wind Howl's captain Tang Hao's attitude after 3 consecutive losses didn't garner any particular attention. When the press conference ended, Wind Howl's PR team gave Liu Hao a huge thumbs up and started chatting with this newly appointed Wind Howl vice-captain. This was the scene for Wind Howl, but how about Blue Rain, who had been upset? Blue Rain's performance in the early season had been quite strong. Apart from their loss to Samsara 3-7 in their away game, whether it was Tiny Herb, Tyranny, or Wind Howl, they always had the last laugh. But after the early season, Blue Rain was a team whose honeymoon had clearly ended. In round 11, they lost to 100 Blossoms 3-7 in their away game. In round 12, they had a beautiful 5-0 lead in their home game, but Thunderclap won the team competition to even it up 5-5. In round 13, they were knocked down by Royal Style 4-6 in their away game. In round 14, Blue Rain unexpectedly lost to Parade. From their performances these few rounds, Blue Rain had stayed at second place. It could be seen just how strong Blue Rain's opening in the early season was. However, in an instant, this 24-point difference disappeared. After the end of round 15, Blue Rain dropped 3 places from second to fifth. They were now only 5 points away from Happy, who was in 6th. 5 points. In Glory, this could be a difference of just a single round. Blue Rain's decline wasn't just this past match, but rather during this phase. However, no one had been so frustrated to the extent of kicking a water bottle like Tang Hao. In their post-match press conferences, their captain and core replied calmly to the reporters' questions as always. Where did Team Blue Rain's problems lie? This was what everyone was wondering. I think it's just a matter of bad luck. Team Blue Rain's captain, Yu Wenzhou, smiled. If we keep saving up all the good luck like this, then I think it'll be a good thing when the playoffs come around. Yu Wenzhou continued. Saving up luck. The reporters didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This was a completely unscientific explanation. However, speaking of playoffs, Blue Rain's recent performances had truly started to worry people about their playoffs spot. They never directly said that they would definitely win. They just gently took out the word playoffs, as if it were as simple as eating food. This was also a form of confidence, and chapter.